My name's Liam and I work for the charity Bug Life. Today I'm going to talk to you about saproxylic invertebrates and the ecology and management of wood decay habitats. So the word saproxylic comes from the Greek word sapros, which means decayed, and xylem, which means wood. So saproxylic invertebrates are species that are dependent upon dead or decaying wood at some stage of their life cycle, or they're dependent upon wood-inhabiting fungi or other saproxylic organisms. But it also extends to bark-associated species as well. And there are around 2,000 invertebrate species in the UK that are considered saproxylic, which includes some of our rarest and most threatened invertebrate species. So with these 2,000 different species means that there's 2,000 different lifestyles going on. So our saproxylic invertebrates can be detritivores, they can be fungivores, they can be predators, scavengers, parasitoids, and show various types of symbiosis as well. The vast majority of our saproxylic invertebrates within the UK are either beetles or flies, but there are an assortment of other insects as well that are considered saproxylic, things like moths, bugs, thrips, bees, wasps, and ants. And there are also some non-insects as well, so things like spiders, mites, pseudoscorpions, and nematodes. And it's also important to note that a large number of other invertebrates and also vertebrates like bats and birds that live in dead and decaying trees, but don't necessarily use them for their own nourishment in the same way as saproxylic species would. And the living tree is really important to saproxylic invertebrates, for it is the living tissues of these trees that generate the wood which ultimately decays and creates those habitats that our saproxylic species need. And there are a number of important features of a living tree that are particularly valuable for saproxylic invertebrates. And these include things like heart rot, so the decay of the heartwood, wood mold at the base of hollow trunks and stumps. We've got dead attached limbs, cavities of various sorts, rot holes, sap runs and slime fluxes. The bark, so aging, flaking or loose bark is valuable. Associated fungi, decaying underground roots, and woodpecker holes. These are all really valuable features of a living tree for our saproxylic invertebrates. And this is like an artist's representation of a sort of ideal veteran tree for wildlife, and it shows a number of those features that are valuable to our saproxylic invertebrates. So you can see on this tree that there's sort of dead attached limbs, there's fungi, there's hollow cavities at the base of the trunk, there's rot holes, there's fallen dead limbs, and there's sort of aging and flaking loose bark, and a variety of other features as well. So going through a few examples of these important features of living trees, the first of which is heartwood decay. So these are columns of decay within the heartwood or the ripewood of the tree. And this is the single most important sort of wood decay resource for our invertebrates. And most saproxylic invertebrates rely upon fungi or other microorganisms which break down the wood into more digestible materials, or they feed either directly or indirectly on these fungi or other microorganisms. And heartwood rotting fungi are sort of ecosystem engineers. They're keystone species within the environment, and they create conditions that a number of our saproxylic invertebrates rely upon. And interestingly, you get different invertebrate faunas associated with different types of heartwood decay. So white rotted heartwood has a different invertebrate fauna in comparison to brown or red rotted heartwood as well. And Costnard's netwing beetle is one example of a species that's associated with heartwood decay. So this is an endangered species within Britain and is considered globally rare. Within Britain is known from only two populations, one of which is in the Wye Valley and another one on the West Sussex Downs. And the larvae of this species develop within cavities in white rotted heartwood of ancient beech trees. Another is the oak click beetle. So this is an endangered species known in Britain only from Windsor Forest, and it develops exclusively in the trunks and main boughs of oak trees that are infested with red rot. and its larvae are actually predatory of the larvae of the hairy fungus beetle, which then goes on to feed on the mycelium of the chicken of the woods fungus. So it's a species that's dependent upon another species that feeds on fungi. So another really valuable habitat for saproxylic invertebrates is wood mold. So this is where that sort of white rot or brown rot breaks down and composts into this sort of soil-like material called wood mold. And this is basically the end product of the hollowing of the inside of the tree by fungi. And this wood mold accumulates in the bottom of these hollowed out cavities and is considered our rarest sort of wood decay habitat. And it's considered our rarest wood decay habitat because if you can imagine, trees have got to become sufficiently old in order to develop enough dead wood, and then sufficient time has got to pass then for fungi to break down this dead wood, and then the products of that to become composted into this wood mold material. And as it's such a rare habitat, it supports some of our rarest species within Britain, and these include species such as the royal splinter cranefly, which is known globally from just 2 sites in the world, one of which is the Windsor Forest. And the species that are reliant upon this wood mold particularly favour the sort of constant temperature and humidity you get within the sort of safety of these hollow cavities in the trunk of the tree. So the violet click beetle is probably our flagship species for wood mold habitat. It's an endangered species in Britain, known only from Windsor Forest and 2 areas in the North Cotswolds, and it's believed to be one of the final specialist wood decay invertebrate species to colonize a tree. And this species is predatory on other invertebrates within wood mold in hollow beech and ash trees. And another habitat that's valuable to our saproxylic invertebrates are rot holes. So these are smaller cavities in the trunk and in the branches in which sort of debris and rainwater accumulates. And these are often open to the elements. So they offer very different conditions from those cavities inside hollow trees. And they're particularly favoured by flies that prefer the sort of moist conditions. And these rot holes develop as a consequence of branch damage, which provides an access point really for heart rot fungi to get into the tree. And then the fungi combined with invertebrates and just a physical breakdown of the decaying wood manage to enlarge these rot holes. So why should we conserve our saproxylic invertebrates? So firstly, they are among the most threatened invertebrate group within Europe. They're also really valuable to us because some of the species are so specific in their habitat requirements and so dependent upon centuries of trees being present in the same locality that their presence is a really good indicator of habitat quality and also continuity as well of our woodland environments. And by breaking down dead wood, they help to free up nutrients and minerals that have been locked up in that wood, so that once again making it available to the tree. So they're effectively prolonging the life of our ancient and veteran trees. So what do our saproxylic invertebrates need? So they need a diverse age structure amongst our trees. So they require obviously lots of ancient and veteran trees to provide the deadwood habitat that they need. But they also need the younger trees, which will become the future veteran trees. They also need a sufficient number of trees in order to maintain viable populations. Many require open-grown trees, and that's because open-grown trees just develop larger. They tend to develop more habitats and more wood decay features. And connectivity is really important. So our saproxylic invertebrates are often poor dispersers. They have trouble colonizing new habitat. So being able to move around the site and well-connected ancient or veteran trees is really valuable as well. Many of our saproxylic invertebrates need pollen and nectar as adults, so access to blossom is really important. So they need the nectar, which is used as energy-rich food, and they also need pollen, which is protein-rich and helps with egg production. So flowering trees and shrubs are by far the most important sources, but other plants as well, other flowering plants are also important. So some examples include hawthorn, sallow, holly, privet, rowan, crabapple, wild pear, guelder rose, bramble, hogweed, and angelica. So what can we do on site to make them more valuable for our saproxylic invertebrates? What we need to do, we need to ensure that we got a supply of both young and mature trees to provide future veterans. We need to retain trees that are showing some of those decay features that I mentioned previously, and obviously conserve these and do nothing to damage them. We need to maintain as many of these veteran trees as possible and allow them to age and die naturally. We need to encourage open grown trees which develop larger butts and trunks and have more heartwood decay at an earlier age. And we need to reduce site fragmentation by promoting trees that will become our future veterans on lands between existing sites. So this can be by tree planting, or we can just encourage natural regeneration. And we need to keep as much dead wood on site as possible, and preferably all of it. An age gap exists between ancient trees and our younger trees that will become our future trees. But where veteranization might be needed. We don't. So this is a technique where our younger trees are potentially damaged, ensuring that we expose them to bacteria and fungi that speed up the habitat for our saproxylic invertebrates. A way of need to retain the same system, I suppose, and getting your ancient trees earlier than you would naturally. So it should be should never be carried out on, for instance, existing ancient or veteran trees as these already have the features our saproxylic that our saproxylic invertebrates need. And it should just be seen as a last resource, really, because we don't want to intentionally damage trees if we can help it. But pollarding is a good traditional method in order to close up the generation gap. It's also important to remember that trees do not exist in isolation, so the environment around them can be crucial to their welfare. Particularly, the way we manage our grasslands around our ancient trees is really important. So the improvement of grasslands through reseeding or the application of fertilizers, herbicides, fungicides, etc. Can be detrimental to our trees and the saproxylic invertebrates that rely on them. So inorganic fertilizers are known to disrupt mycorrhizal fungi that are important to trees, making them more susceptible to stress, meaning that they might die at a younger age. Ploughing also damages the roots of trees, and also interferes with the mycorrhizal fungi. So in an ideal situation, you should avoid the use of inorganic fertilizers and avoid sort of ploughing or reseeding of grasslands near ancient trees. Where a site has a long history of grazing, whether that's by sheep or cattle or deer, we want to look to sort of maintain those traditional grazing regimes as long as they don't interfere with the floral resources that are available. So we want to ensure that there's pollen and nectar resources available to our saproxylic invertebrates when they need it. So we might need to reduce grazing between the months of sort of April and September, or avoid cutting of meadows between that period, or sort of look to retain or plant up blocks of flowering trees or shrubs. We want to avoid supplementary feeding of livestock where possible, because the dung is enriched and that can then enrich the soil and interfere with the fungal communities which our trees are dependent upon. And ivermectins and other types of wormers within the dung of livestock can also affect the soil and soil invertebrates and dung beetles and other things as well. So we want to avoid that wherever possible. So to summarize, saproxylic invertebrates are among our rarest and most threatened species. They require good populations of ancient or veteran trees, and management should aim for a large number of trees and a large number of ancient or veteran trees in particular, within fairly close proximity, so we've got that good connectivity, and they should be of different ages as well to ensure we've got that continuity of habitat